we talk about Leicester when they were the season they won it. I think many people would agree it was a perfect storm. Everything panned out beautifully for them. This is the exact opposite for Liverpool. So the perfect storm in that everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And when you are the champions or when you are successful, everyone wants a reason to knock you down, and every little thing that could go wrong, they're just going to be absolutely nailing you. And that's what people have been doing.
Hi guys, and welcome to the world famous Beating the Press podcast, a weekly podcast where we talk about all things football. So if that's the type of thing that you're interested in, why not subscribe? We are now up to, I think, 73 subscribers. So after last week's subscriber drive, we've managed to turn another one. So we're flying at the minute. Today, we will be focusing on Liverpool and their horrific start of the season and basically asking what's went wrong. Ty mentioned to me that obviously it's important that we cover Liverpool when they're doing good, when they're doing rubbish. So here we are, we're fronting up to basically what's been a horrific start to the season. So Ty, start off with you. Tell me where it's went wrong.
Hi guys, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us again. It's a funny one because my nephew, one of our loyal subscribers and regular viewers, he said to me, he's all young, he said to me, "Why haven't you done a Liverpool one yet? Because they've been shit." And I was like, I said, I didn't want us to be sort of overly Liverpool biased, so I thought, a bit of balance. And he said, "No, you need to do one." So heads up for him and shout out to him to give us a nudge and got us to do it. What's gone wrong? I mean, where do you start? The one thing, I'll talk about what's gone wrong in a bit. I think the one thing that I have learned throughout all this is that 99% of football fans don't actually understand the game. And that has just been magnified even more. Now, when 3 months ago, when Liverpool were top of the table, they're flying, everyone was like, brilliant. They're going to clean everything up again. They, what a manager, even without the centre halves, it's not an issue. And then they've obviously had a monumental slump, dip, whatever you want to call it, crisis. There's all sorts of words being thrown about. Records being smashed for the wrong reasons. But it's still the same team. For you to make a judgment on a team over a 2-month period and completely write them off is
excuse my talk.
I actually can't hear it. So yeah,
keep going.
Yeah. So I thought you were laughing because you couldn't hear me, and I was like, "All right, there goes internet. The joys of internet kicking in again." So I was just, the space of 2 months, everything's sort of magnified, and it's almost like you could have one of the problems that Liverpool have had, and it'd be an issue for the season. But they've probably had about 6 or 7, and they've all sort of accumulated in the same period of time. Obviously the injuries have been spoken about by everyone and anyone. Not going to talk too much about, your centre halves go missing, your replacement centre halves go missing, your midfielders go dropping there, your midfielders get injured, you end up getting a couple on, loans, and we don't know what they're going to be like. They might be all right, they might not. Your rest of your team is just massively out of form. Lack of confidence is humongous. You've got your goalkeeper's father's passed away in a tragic accident. The manager's mum's passed away. Like all these things in isolation, you think, oh, that's fucking bad. But to have them all at the same time, it's what I'd call a perfect storm. We talk about Leicester when they were the season they won it. I think many people would agree it was a perfect storm. Everything panned out beautifully for them. This is the exact opposite for Liverpool. So the perfect storm in that everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And when you are the champions or when you are successful, everyone wants a reason to knock you down, and every little thing that could go wrong, they're just going to be absolutely nailing you. And that's what people have been doing. So it's just it's interesting, and I think the loyal Liverpool fans, like me and you, and who understand the game as well. People have had shouts about Klopp out or he's leaving. It's just I can't think of anything further from the truth or further from reality for that to happen. Everyone would. There's literally no manager in the world that can replace Klopp. No, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
So that's me. You talk to me.
Right, I'm going to try and keep this in less than half an hour. So if I'm going on, you just cut in, right? So you're right. Last season, beginning of the season, people were talking about us being up there with the best teams in Premier League history, and then all of a sudden, that's now changed to being the worst champions of all time. Now, I wanted to discuss that the worst champions, right? We're not the worst champions. We're definitely not the worst champions, because you've got to look into the factors which put us in there, which you've actually just mentioned there. It's statistically the worst offence. That's probably the best way I can put it. Statistically the worst offence. But as for the worst champions, it's not. Like, I've got a list of things here. So first of all, unprecedented season with COVID. VAR, officially the most decisions have went against us. The violins are out here.
Do you know what? I kind of feel like one of those. I feel like people, if we had enough massive, loads of engagement and loads of people listening, they'd be like, for fuck's sake, Liverpool fans are getting out the violin now. But I get that.
But I'm also going to.
Almost feels like the Rafa Benitez fact interview here. But you crack on.
I'm definitely going to counteract this with reasons why we are the worst champions as well. So stay tuned for that. Officially, the most is without injured players, over 20 different centre back partners, and I didn't even think that was possible. 20 different centre back partners.
I manage a football like a grassroots football team, right? And last season we had 11 goalkeepers, and I thought that was fucking bad. And we're a grassroots team. For a professional team to have 20 centre half partnerships, that's just fucking bonkers. But carry on.
It's not even like we've just gone past the halfway point of the season to have that now. It's absolutely ridiculous. We've lost key players, key leaders, not fringe players, key players like captains, vice captains. Those are do the talking on the pitch. You've got burnout. Obviously, keeping up with City the last couple of years. What Klopp's done. He's made people believe that we are on a level where realistically we're probably not. City have got all the financial might, and he's put us on that bar just because of his own ability. You've got COVID illnesses. If you think of Salah, did we have another couple of players that were out for a little bit as well? And no Anfield factor. That is absolutely massive. Obviously you spoke on that. I think amongst the top six, we probably suffer the most and benefit the most with our crowd. So those are the reasons why I think that we're getting a little bit hard done by when it comes to are we the worst champions ever. On the other hand, we have Klopp and the club's general decision making, which he's not immune from questioning. You know what I mean? He's unbelievable. Our best manager. He's never going to get sacked, even if he loses the next, 10, 15 games towards the end of the season. The players will go before he goes, in my opinion. But starting with Jota in a meaningless Champions League game, you remember that? Where was that? Midtjylland. We were already qualified, and he played him. Sending Minamino on loan once Jota was injured. We had Origi on the bench, which obviously left Mane, Salah, and Firmino as our forwards, which is not a problem, but obviously burnout, that's going to affect them also. And then relying on Matip, not bringing in a centre-back on January the 1st. Like you mentioned that in the last one. How we didn't do that. How can you ever rely on Matip? And then to bring in two defenders on deadline day and then not play them. We've got keeping Bobby on, taking Curtis off, not sorting out Genie's contract. Like the list is that's not normal. It's a lot of bad decisions, in my opinion. I don't know whether you think of any of those that you would.
Yeah, no, I think the Jota one at Midtjylland, Salah played that game, and that's the one I think, I'll defend him to the hilt, but that decision is fucking stupid. Like, and I don't know what his justification is to do that. I'd rather him play 16-year-olds and got smashed 20-0. I couldn't give a flying fuck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? for him to play Jota and then that happened, and it's just, I think there's been a huge sort of, magnifying glass being put on the defence. The issue hasn't really been the defence, it's the forwards. And we talk about lack of confidence, and there's everything just seems to sort of, having Jota there gave us that backup of a quality player in the front line. Now, when Jota was out, it just meant us being back to the last 2-3 seasons when we're relying on Origi to come on and hope he does something. I mean, people, I've had conversations with mates before who said, "Oh, Origi's all right." I think people who don't want Liverpool fans just remember him from the Barcelona game or scoring in the Champions League final. But literally, apart from that, I mean, Everton goal or the odd goal, he's still fuck all. You know what I mean? So I think it's come to a point now where he's had enough time. He's just not growing. He's not maturing. His game understanding's poor. It's a case of just, thanks, but no thanks, and see you later. And then having Origi to sometimes Firmino's, and we've both watched Firmino for a while, and I think he's on a steady decline. He's not been great. I say a steady decline. You don't know. He might just be massively out of form for a long period of time. But we'll always know that in the future. But I just think at the moment he's not in our best 11 with Jota there as well. He's dropped off massively. Salah and Mane Salah, to be fair, has been. He's top scorer in the league, but he's still missed a lot of chances. Mane's been off form. The midfield three keeps changing. Thiago having to come in as well and start from the get-go has not helped. Because if you remember Fabinho, who I think, in my opinion, and I'd imagine quite a large proportion of the footballing world would regard Fabinho as the best holding midfielder in the world, and he was before he got injured and were away. He had to wait about 4 or 5 months before he were regular in the team. So Klopp always gives new players an opportunity to understand the way we play, the philosophy, the styles, the patterns of play, how they fit into the system moving forward. So with Fabinho, that's what happened. Thiago's not had that luxury because it's been fucking injury after injury. So it's bang, you've got to go and play. The way Bayern play to the way Liverpool play is different. Just because you go play, you can certainly come in and do different systems, but you've still got to understand different patterns and stuff and where you're positionally where you need to be. With Bayern, it was generally 4-2-3-1, so it was Kimmich and him as the sort of the holding players. Whereas now we generally play with a 3, so it's Wijnaldum who's been there, and then Thiago's had to play on the right hand side of a 3, and Jones on the left hand 3. So it's them small tweaks that people don't see, and they'll just say, "Oh, Thiago's playing, they're going to lose again." It's a bit simplistic, do you know what I mean? You've got to understand the whole everything, how it works, and that's why when I say 99% of football fans just are fucking stupid, and the last year has probably magnified that for me more because I'm in lockdown and I watch the game and you go to social media, I'm like, fuck me, you are stupid. You just don't bother. You can't argue with stupid, so it's literally no point putting anything there, or replying or coming up with anything. But I agree with you. I think the cock-ups, the Jota one, agreed. Yeah, 100%. They're not getting a centre half in early, 100% agree. And I think the reason why they did that was what they thought was Matip would be fit. Now that's stupid thinking. Anyone who doesn't even Liverpool fan, Matip doesn't play regularly. I think he had a season last season when it was him and Van Dijk for majority of the season, and then after that he's just been injured. He starts, he's injured. You can't rely on him. And then he got injured in that Tottenham game, and it was like, right, you know what? We actually need to buy centre half. And the worst thing out of all this, the way Nat Phillips has played since every time he comes on, if we just started playing him at the start and left Fabinho and Henderson in midfield, you don't know whether that comes with. You're asking me, would you rather go with the unknown, or would you go with Fabinho, who's a good centre half, but a world club, but the best midfielder? I'd probably go with Fabinho, which is a safer option. But now, obviously, Nat Phillips playing your Champions League in the league and pretty much had 2 or 3 man of matches every time he's played. That's the decision. You can, hindsight is great. We can go back and do that. I agree with what you said.
Well, like you said, hindsight's 2020. But we've been saying it for so long, and that's why I think that decision is probably the most, not unforgivable, but the worst decision that he's made, I think. If you think of in order of importance in a team, obviously everyone's opinion is different, but for me, probably midfielders club, that's the most important place. That's where you win and lose the games. And then I would say probably your defence next, then your goalkeeper, and then probably your attacker. That's my order. That's my priority. Now, obviously, we've got a problem, in my opinion, in priority 2, which is defence. Now we're taking our key players from priority 1 and putting them into priority 2 defence, and then we're missing out on midfield. It's affecting the forwards. It's just missing. It's affecting everything. So I just don't understand the reasoning of taking out our strongest area and moving it to a weaker area, and in turn weakening our midfield. So that was no more emphasised than obviously the game the other night. We saw like Fabinho come in and he was absolutely outstanding. He just showed what we were missing. Like, you had Thiago, probably his best game in a while. Our fullbacks were able to push up. Jota running in behind, it obviously helps him, like being in the team. And then obviously Bobby Firmino was out injured. We don't wish injury on him, but obviously he needed a little bit of time out. We've got a graphic which I prepared in paint earlier today.
Thanks, Chris. We're not a cowboy outfit, by the way. This is Chris's preparation. To be fair, at least he's done something. No,
well, I was interested in just seeing how, because what we're fortunate with on this particular game is there's not that many variables. Like if you think of the Leipzig game at home and away, obviously both games were played in exactly the same ground. The result was exactly the same. Leipzig didn't really change too much. They didn't offer too many things too different. So it's easy to compare the two games side by side. Now, you've got the top game for those of you that are not listening. Those of you that are listening on a podcast, we've got the away game. And what you can see...
The first leg, effectively.
Yeah, the first leg is the away game. What you've got is a midfield three of Curtis Jones, Gini Wijnaldum and Thiago. And what you're generally seeing is a bunch together three, and you're also seeing like a relatively conservative back four. You'd agree that that's a standard back four, Ty?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the back, I mean, yeah, the back four is fair. I mean, it doesn't look like a normal back four because the full backs will be a lot higher and wider. The midfield three, we've got of Wijnaldum, Thiago, and Curtis Jones. So it almost feels like Wijnaldum, or it looks, well, Wijnaldum and Thiago played like a double pivot in there, with Jones just to the head of them. Now, that's obviously, I've just spoke about that earlier, the way we've normally played is with that three in middle with, Fabinho as a holder, and we've got a midfielder either side as a 2-8. And then the midfield, the front three as well, they're in a straight line with Firmino, at the tip of it, and then you've got Salah and Mane either side. But I mean, the distances from back to front, I mean, it's quite a compact team, and I think the way it was set up was because we were obviously through bad run. I mean, we were bad run in the second leg as well, but bad run, and he wanted to protect the defence. And to do that, what he did was he put two effectively sixes, and he played the full backs quite deep as well, so they weren't high and wide as they normally would. And then sorry, go on.
Yeah, because obviously what you've got that on that particular leg, you've got Henderson and I think it was Kabak at the back. So effectively, I'd say a faster centre-back pairing than what was playing the other night. You've got Phillips. Was it Phillips and Kabak? Phillips and Kabak at the back. So Phillips is, I would say, slower than Henderson. But again, for those of you listening, the second game, Liverpool were the home team, and you obviously notice on that shape tie, it's more typical of what we're used to. You've obviously got the two centre backs much further back, and you've got the full backs pushing beyond the halfway line. Obviously, like you can see that the shape is much better. Everybody's in what you'd consider a more typical formation. You've got Fabinho in the hole, and basically he's allowing the two in front of him just to push on. And obviously what that allows is everybody else to push up and press the ball a lot better. You'll see that Jota is a lot further forward.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point there you say about Fabinho allowed, we squeeze out, we can press teams higher. With that, Fabinho does something better than any other player in world football in that he stops counter-attacks. Now, his positioning there where he is, you're right that the whole team, that's how I'd expect a Liverpool team to be. Two centre-halves, you've got Fabinho in front of them, and then the two full-backs are high and wide. Now, the important bit that I'd like to, obviously Wijnaldum and Thiago are slightly ahead of them, and I thought the three midfield were brilliant. Jota playing where he is there, he's an actual focal point. He's stretching the game. With Firmino, he's always coming to the ball, whereas Jota's always stretching it. And that allowed, again, the team to push up and then the fullbacks to get higher and wider as well. And you saw Trent just get into the final third so much more, same with Robbo. And then Mane and Salah were obviously, I mean, they both scored. But yeah, they were more of a threat and it felt more fluid as well because there were three. We felt dangerous centrally as well, where I don't normally feel we have been to win with Firmino, because Firmino, you get him and he's fucking shots like got no power in it. You know, if you shoot from the outside the box, it's like it's a fucking p-roller, and it's like he's never going to have enough pace to go past someone. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with Jota, he thinks like a forward. He wants to score goals, you know, and he was a threat. I mean, he missed a few chances, but he continually got there. Do you know what I mean? So those chances wouldn't have been. Firmino wouldn't have had those chances because he wouldn't have done the stuff before it to create those moments.
He wouldn't have obviously have stretched the back line as much as they do. Like, you know, that's exactly what we have been missing. I just wanted to also point out the action areas. Like in both of these fixtures, I was surprised that Leipzig actually had more possession in both games. In the second game, when Fabinho was playing, they had even more possession. Obviously, we're protecting the lead at that point, you know. We're bound to sit a little bit more and allow them more possession, but we just ultimately looked a lot more controlled. Now, bear in mind that we don't have as much possession. You can see that in the second leg, a lot more of the play was in their actual final third.
Yeah, no, I mean, the actual graphic of the formation where the players are, that's an indicator of that, because you'd expect Leipzig to be pinning us in, you know, pinning us back into our final third, because obviously they're chasing the game. But we had good control of the game, which allowed the fullbacks to be high and wide as they are, Jota to stretch it, you know, Fabinho right in front of the back too. So the whole shape of the team and the way it's set up, and I want to say control. And I've obviously spoke about this before, you know, me and you had this chat before, and it's like what's missing. And the single biggest thing that's been missing for us for the last few months is intensity. We had that back on there. So we get that intensity and control. We're almost unplayable. And it was that performance on, I don't know, whatever day it was very much like one of our performances. It's what I'd expect from a Liverpool team in a big European night. Turn up, perform, intensity, control, everything you want from it, and it didn't really make a difference what the centre halves were. They were both brilliant, but there was good belief and intensity, and I think that the 11 that he picked up, I think picked for that team for that game, I think that's our strongest 11 for the rest of the season. I think, and if you know, obviously, knowing our looks, we'll get fucking injured next game, but as long as everyone's fit, that's the 11.
Obviously, we're not out of the woods yet, but that's what I was just about to ask you. Do you think that he'll continue that till the end of the season now, seeing what happened?
You'd like to think so, but then you know, we obviously had Marwan in a few episodes ago, talking about rest periods and all that, and at elite level, you know, those players need it even more. I mean, Wijnaldum's had like one game off. Do you know? I don't even know. He pretty much played every game. Trent got 75 minutes off against Fulham. Robbo's pretty much played every game. Salah and Mane have played pretty much every game. Do you know what I mean? So these are like 2 games a week, and it's not like, you know, your mate going on from playing for Dog and Duck. And I play on midweek as well. I play 5-a-side. I do all this shit. I play like 2 times a week. It's like different, mate. You know, you're playing at fucking elite level. You know, so your recovery times are important. And so that's the only thing. And obviously, it'll be dictated to by the medical department saying, you know, this player's been playing X amount of time, so he'll need a breather at some point. And now we're coming to the business end of the season as well. What we got 10 games left, and then whatever we've got left in the Champions League. So and then, you know, you've got to think. You've got the international break coming along as well, and you're just thinking, fuck's sake, no one get injured, please. There's just, I mean, it's hard being a manager, and you've got so many things to think about. And then there's me and you thinking, yeah, that's a good 11, stick to that 11 for the rest of the season. It's like, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously hoping that he sticks with Fabinho in the midfield. Like, but I think that graphic, the main thing I wanted to emphasise in that graphic, it just shows that one player affects the whole squad, like important, like how important that one player is to the whole team ethic, the team, the way that Klopp wants us to play. Now, if you imagine Henderson in that midfield as well, it changes the dynamic even more. It probably pushes that a little bit higher. You know, you put Van Dijk, you put Gomez, again, were higher again, or Matip. They've all been long-term injuries. And then obviously, again, you add in Mane, Alisson, Trent, Salah, now Bobby, the new lad who came in. They're all been out for around about a month each, you know what I mean? So when we say that Liverpool are not the worst champions, that's the reasons why. But obviously, keyboard warriors will still have their own.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think it's lazy, and that's what it is. It's just like worst champions, and people who've actually watched it. I mean, if you ask people who are the best two teams in the league, if anyone says anything other than Liverpool and Man City, I'd genuinely be worried. You know, you can say someone might have had a good 2 or 3 months. You know, it might be Leicester, might be Chelsea, but Man United. But you know, I think I've not looked at the prices for next season, but I'd imagine Man City and Liverpool are the top two favourites for the league.
Yeah, the bookies are rarely wrong, and
and
you would imagine.
And then I think a good way to sort of show that as well is if you look at the favourites for the Champions League. I mean, I think Man City are favourites. I don't know why they put them favourites. They've never been to a final. It's like you've been every year the favourites. They get knocked out in quarters or something. So I mean, you've got Man City who are favourites, and then Liverpool I think are third or fourth, and then you've got Chelsea who are like well down. So that just shows, like we're talking about Chelsea having a good run. Like in the long run, how will they sort of do? He's still a new manager. It's a different game when there's no fans there. There's no pressure. Do you know what I mean? So I think next season, when everything's back to normal, it'll be really interesting to see where Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea have got a phenomenal squad. That's one thing I can say. But it's like, can you get them to marry and work and it all working well for them?
Yeah. Just wanted to finish on one question for you. Gini Wijnaldum, like, what's going on with this contract? Surely they've got to sort this contract out.
I'm surprised you're saying that because I used to get messages of you all the time. I was like, this guy's so fucking overrated. And I said to him, you know what, you're off your tits. I was going to put you in that 99%. But no, Gini Wijnaldum, I mean, you talk about underrated footballers and then you talk about underrated footballers. And this guy is an absolute phenomenon. And I think talk about playing adaptability, playing in different positions. He's played as a holding player for Liverpool. He's played as an 8. He plays as a 10 for Holland. He scores goals for fun. He's scored some unbelievably huge goals for us in big European nights. He's put performances in. He's quite rightly, I think he's the third captain or something, the fourth captain after Milner, Van Dijk, and them in it. So yeah, I mean, obviously they've all been injured or away or whatever, so he's got to come in. And you know what? He's just never sort of shied away. He's obviously said, if I leave, I'll be devastated. And I genuinely believe him, and I think he'll obviously come. It's going to be his last contract. You've got to sort of think family and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a conversation for another episode. But I think he's a multi-billionaire. It's not like even if he retires now, he'll be absolutely fine for life. But I suppose you've still got to be. You still got to be paid what you deserve and what you're worth, and I think that's the same in any walk of life, and I can't argue or begrudge him that. But I'm hoping upon hope that something happens and they sort it out and they keep him. But if he goes, we are not shy of good midfielders, quality midfielders, especially when they're back. The other issue if Wijnaldum plays, it's like pick your best 3. What is it? You got Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum who was out, and then you got Thiago and Naby Keita's coming back. You know what I mean? Curtis Jones as well. That's before I go into Ox or Shaqiri. Midfielders we can get rid of, but you want to keep your quality. So, Gini, I love him to bits. He's gave me some of the greatest nights of my life. Wife might disagree.
Not the end of the world.
He's not. But I'd love for him to keep. So, but yeah, just let the viewers and listeners know why you thought he wasn't a great midfielder, and then me having to bat.
I still don't think he's a great midfielder. Like great is obviously. I don't think he meant to use the word great. He's a good midfielder. He's been one of our better midfielders over the last 10 years. I'd say he's like Mr. Number 7. Like he's very consistent, always 7 out of 10. But I think to take us to that Man City level, I think you need someone that offers a little bit more. Obviously, you've got your holding player, and you've effectively got a ball retainer and someone who can pick a pass, and then you've got like a Kevin De Bruyne who can score a goal. I just don't think that he fits in any one of them in particular. I feel like he's almost kind of like a jack of all trades, which is not a bad thing.
Perfect midfielder, you'd call him.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing, but he doesn't specialise in anything in particular. You know, if I think of Man City's midfield, like my opinion, their best midfield, you know, you've got Rodri, who's kind of a bit of a destroyer who can also play. You've got Gundogan, who can play and score goals, and then you've got Kevin De Bruyne, who does everything at an elite level. Now you put that up against our midfield, I just think we have too many workers, and if we want to take it to that next level, I'd say at the City level, then I think Gini is a squad player. However,
I just want to come in now and I want to say a point. You said we had too many workers. Those workers smashed Man City by about 20 odd points last season. Now, those workers is a way of playing. The way you're talking about Man City's level, I'm not buying it. Man City have won the league. Yes, they did, absolutely. But when it comes to Europe, they crumble, they fall apart. Their philosophy and the way they play, it's like Guardiola's absolutely genius, brilliant. I absolutely agree with you. There's more than one way of playing in a midfield three. Our midfield three of Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and that's the three you're on about. Absolute workers. But there's no shortage of quality in that midfield three as well. Do you know what I mean? The importance of that midfield three for the rest of the team and the rest of how we play and our philosophy and our intensity, it's just so underrated. You can't just say it's workmanlike and it's powerful. It's more than that. We've beat Man City with that midfield and outplayed that midfield as well. So I think it's a bit easy. You know, we've had Thiago come in. Will it work out? We're hoping he does. That's the sort of player you're thinking. But again, he might not fit into the way we play. You know, I mean, obviously it's a bit easier with Fabinho's there. So I just think let's not just look at Man City being the old concrete and all that, because I think they'll look at midfield as well and they'll be like, oh, there's some good players in there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But let's say you're picking a midfield tomorrow from Man City and Liverpool. Gini Wijnaldum doesn't feature in the three that you pick.
I don't know. There's two that are definitely, that's Fabinho and Kevin De Bruyne, and the other one's up for grabs. You know, Gundogan's had a phenomenal last 2 months, 3 months, brilliant. But for Gundogan and Wijnaldum, there's not a lot in him for both of them. The thing is, Wijnaldum's had to play a holding midfield position because all our holding midfielders have been injured. Yeah. He plays as a 10 for Holland. He scores a shitload of goals for Holland at international level. If he was allowed to play further forward, he would be. He's the epitome of what you'd call a team player. Do you ever hear him complaining, I need to be playing further forward because this is what I do for Holland? No, because he gets on with it. He cracks on with it. It's too easy to say stuff, when you look at someone's doing well and you think that's better. Last season everyone's looking at Liverpool thinking, it doesn't. It's that longevity. It's thinking consistently across the sort of wider view and seeing it all as one.
It's also important that you put emphasis on the fact that he has been playing probably the best for us, and it's important to realise that he, with his contract winding down, you kind of may look upon him a different way to what is perhaps the reality. I wasn't just saying that he was I don't want to say subpar because he's far from that. I was saying this when we were winning, not just when we were losing. So I just think that there are better midfielders out there, but he is a massive player for us. But he can be replaced.
They really are not. I just think he's the most underrated player in the league, and it's just for you to say that as a Liverpool fan, and it's an argument we can carry on forever and ever. But I just think you are massively underrating how good he is. He's just a brilliant player. You watch him do, he knits everything together, and the position he plays for Liverpool is the reason why he may not go forward. And whereas you had Fabinho in there on against Leipzig, and you saw him, and I was like, yeah, that's Wijnaldum. That's our Gini. You know what I mean? That's how he plays when he's got his mates next to him and he's playing in his sort of proper position. Yeah. So I think let's not. He's top quality, absolute top quality. There's a reason why he leaves Liverpool. He's going to go to one of the best teams in the world. That's just it. Do you know what I mean? Let's not say you don't go to them if you're not a great midfielder. And that's just the way it is.
If you put Gundogan and replace him with, Wijnaldum, I still think you get the same level of output.
What do you mean? So what if you place Gundogan? So Gundogan for leaves Man City and Wijnaldum goes there.
Yes.
Oh no, I think he'd play in a slightly different way because there's obviously when we play and our fullbacks run forward, they naturally go in and sit into those fullback areas to stop the counter attack or just to have a good balance.
Yeah.
So in case you get on the turnover, we're in good positions. Or if it comes back out, they're right in the half spaces to get the ball back in. Whereas Man City play slightly different. So the fullbacks just drive into the centre midfield, don't they? So they just have a massive overload in there. I think Ronaldo, wherever he goes, he would improve that team. That's just maybe I just see him in a different way, and you don't, and you just think everything's backwards and sideways. But I think that's been magnified recently because A, lack of confidence, and B, well, I say A, his normal midfield teammates aren't there. B, lack of confidence. But I just think out of all of our players, he has never hid during this show. And I think
one thing I will say in his defence is that he's an unbelievable player at returning possession, probably up there with the best. Yeah. Like I said, there's nothing against him in that way. The only thing is I just feel like he is a retention master and not a lot else. That's basically how I would sum him up.
Right, we'll agree to disagree because I think you're an absolute twat. But yeah, finishing off, guys, as we are, every week we have a question of the episode. So for this question of the episode, we'll think of a snazzy statement to go with it. But yeah, so this week's question is: do you think Liverpool will return to challenge for the title once they get their bodies fit for next season, or is that it? Are they finished? So will they come back or not? So whatever you like, let us know. Comments down at the bottom. I know we get some decent-ish engagement from our many subscribers, viewers. We're not going to put a number on it because I know there'll be more. But yeah, anything from you, Chris?
No, just like Ty said. Also, give us your opinion: Gundogan or Wijnaldum? Below.
Wonderful. Right. Until next week, guys. See you later. Have a good life.
See you later.